Hey everybody, welcome back to Horror Trans. This is my franchise rankings video. Like I said, I'm not going to be able to do one of these every week or even, twice a week, but I've still got a few coming, so I decided to go ahead and do another one. This one doesn't have as many movies as some of the franchises I've done or will do, but it has enough to qualify. It has four feature length films, it has an animated series, and it has a handful of video games and possibly comic books, etc. We're going to focus on the four films. This is another one that isn't true horror. It's more of a horror comedy, but it's actually more of a comedy sci-fi slash horror. Uh, but fuck it, we're gonna do it anyways. We're ranking the Ghostbusters franchise, and we're starting with number 4, which is my least favorite of the four, and this is Ghostbusters 2. Uh, Now, truth be told, I don't hate Ghostbusters 2. I've already talked about it in the past. I actually really like it. It was the very first movie I ever saw in theaters, so I do have nostalgia for it. It's just my least favorite because it is more or less a carbon copy of the first movie with just like subtle differences and major fan service and a lot of throwbacks. Number 3 is Ghostbusters 2016, also known as Answer the Call. This is the one with the four women. I do personally really enjoy this movie, and I contemplated whether or not this was better for me than Afterlife, um, but I put it in the number 3 spot ultimately because I have only seen it the once. And while I do own it on DVD, and I do intend to watch it again at some point, uh, I'll admit it's not the best in the franchise, and it's certainly not the worst. It's better than some people say it is. So I definitely recommend you put aside all the bullshit and just watch it for yourself and make your own judgment. But it's actually pretty good. Number 2 is, of course, Afterlife. I put Afterlife in the number 2 spot. Again, I've only seen it the once. I saw it in theaters, and I did enjoy it the first time. Um, I do have some issues with this movie. I have a lot of issues with this movie, in fact. But overall, I was pretty satisfied with it continuing the story of the first two films, with also throwbacks to the franchise, while also, introducing new characters and paving the way for a continuation of the story that makes sense from where we are in the timeline instead of just a straight reboot or requel or whatever, which is what Answer the Call was trying to be. Obviously, number 1 is Ghostbusters 1984, the original, the classic. This is one of the few movies that I rate as a perfect movie, 5 out of 5 stars. If I were giving it a star rate, if I gave movies a star rating, I have no issues with this movie whatsoever. It's in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Um, it's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. I watch it multiple times a year. I do own it on DVD and Blu-ray, and if I ever get a chance, I'll get it on VHS and Laserdisc and maybe other formats depending on time and budget and etc. Overall, the Ghostbusters franchise is just barely horror. Um, the first movie and the second movie have the most horror-like elements in them. I would say Answer the Call is way more comedy than horror, and Afterlife, it has like trace elements of horror, but just barely, not nearly as much as 1 and 2. But you know, it's my list, so make of it what you will. Stay cool.